Inside, the lights are low. This isn't your typical lounge. This is where the forgotten tales gather, where the shadows have their say. We'll talk of monsters in the woods, of killers with a motive and lights in the sky, and ghosts in the attic. Come into the waiting room, please.
All right, tonight we have Margie K. She's a radio personality. She's involved with UNX Network, and she's a paranormal investigator. Phil was with us, but he had to leave. We had the Paranormal Soul Brother, and he was involved with WKRP Cincinnati, and he's a dancing entertainer. You know me already, Margie, so I don't need to introduce myself. And we have a special guest, the legendary Tim Shorts. And Tim Shorts, he's been on History's Greatest Mysteries, Ancient Aliens, and William Shatner's The Unexplained. And also, too, Margie, I'm going to take you into a time machine. We're going to go back to 2020. And you were interviewed by Tim Shorts and Tim Beckley. Tim and Tim, Exploring the Bizarre.
Oh, yeah.
KCOR Radio.
I remember that. Yes.
You and Tim go back 2020.
Yeah, 5 years. I thought you were going to, when you said take me back in time, I thought you were going to take me back to the 70s.
Oh my gosh. But anyway, thank you for being on the show. Margie, how did you get involved with the paranormal? What made you so interested in the paranormal?
Well, as a kid, paranormal things kept happening to me. So we figured out early on, by the time I was 2 years old, that I was seeing things other people weren't. And but when I was 10 or 11 years old, I saw my first apparition, which happened to just be a floating head at the end of my bed in my bedroom in the middle of the night. So that was a wake-up call, and I wanted to know what that was, and how is it possible that there was a spirit of my grandfather who I'd never met. He died before I was born, and there he was talking to me, although I couldn't hear anything. So that set me down a path, and then, of course, everything paranormal you can think of has happened to me since. And you know, lots of UFO sightings, extraterrestrials, poltergeists in the house, tearing things up, just everything that you can imagine. So that's how I got interested in becoming an investigator. And I thought, well, I'll probably be able to solve this in short order. Now, it's still not solved.
I know the Paranormal Soul Brother is going to be very interested. You did some UFO investigations?
Oh, I've done over 1,200 UFO investigations, yeah.
Wow.
Some for MUFON, and then before that, before I joined MUFON for myself. Yeah.
And where are some of the locations that you did these UFO hunts?
All over the state of Missouri, some Kansas, a few other states. And then, of course, I've had my own experiences and encounters to add to that, but just basically all over. There are a lot of hot spots, but they can't appear anywhere at any time, really. There's just no rhyme or reason to why they do what they do. You'll have a group come into one part of a state for a while, for a period of time, and they'll all be the same type of craft, and then after, you know, a couple of days or a month or two, they'll be gone, and you never see that again in that spot. It's just strange. It's a phenomenon that is bizarre. It's unexplained. And, you know, as we get smarter with our technology, we're starting to figure a few things out about them, but not everything. And certainly some of them are ours, as I'm sure you're aware, so to speak. But we got some of the technology from them.
Now, have you come across, have you interviewed any alien abductees?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, lots. Quite a few. In fact, we have an ET experiencers group here in Kansas City, and we're not associated with any other organization. So we accept anybody who wants to come in and discuss their encounters. Either they've been abducted or they have simply had encounters. They've seen extraterrestrials or non-human entities. And so we provide a safe place for them to come visit with us and talk. And there are a few groups around the country that do that, but we really have to find a way to get to more people and do something like in this format on Zoom or something else. But also we've got to be able to keep it very secure so that nobody can break in, because occasionally people break in on Zoom meetings. So we're working on that, and we might do something here in the near future.
Hey, Tim and Paranormal Soul Brother, there was an alien abductee that I interviewed, and he had an implant in his leg, and there was no entry wound or there was no exit wound. And I was able to touch his implant and move it around, which was so weird. Have you ever experienced anything like that, Margie?
Yes, I have several of my witnesses that I know have implants after they've had a sighting, and then it also seems to continue where they'll receive new implants at various times, and they seem to know when they've had an experience. And then I've had one in particular will come to me, and I'll check him with an EMF meter, and we'll find something else there, or you can actually see it under the skin. And I had an implant myself, which was taken out in 1987.
Wow.
We thought it was a hernia. All of a sudden I started having this pain right below my navel, and it was just like there was something really hard in there that was trying to come out and like burst through the skin. It was very painful. So I went to the doctor, and he referred me to a surgeon. The surgeon says, I don't know what that is, but we're going to get it out. So he said, it might be a hernia. I don't know. So I went into the hospital. He said, this is just an outpatient procedure. It's a little 1/4-inch cut. We're going to take that out and be done with it. And when I woke up from the surgery, I was in a private room by myself with only the intern in there with me. And I was like, can I go now? And she says, no, you can't go. It took a little longer than we thought and a little bigger wound. So she says, let me take a look at that. And she takes the packing off and takes a look, and there is a 3-4-inch cut, not a 1/4 inch, a big long cut that has been sewn up, but part of it wasn't sewn up right. And there was blood and what looked like blood and water squirting out just everywhere. It was all over the bed and the floor. And she says, well, hold this down real tight. Okay, now the rest of this is kind of weird.
Okay, I'm ready.
If you're ready for weirdness, my husband called at that moment and says, are you ready to go? I'll come pick you up. I said, no, I'm not. Something really weird's going on here.
Right.
And they've got to come back and sew it up. So the intern went to go get the doctor, left the room. Then a man comes in. Man is over 6 feet tall. He's wearing a yellow short sleeve shirt and tan pants. And he said his name to me. It was John something. And he said, I'm with Unity Church. Do you need some help? And it was almost like I picked up, he knew I needed some help. And I said, well, I've got this problem. I really don't want to have to go through having the surgeon stitch this up. And he says, well, let's just say a little prayer. I said, okay. So he held my hand, said a short prayer, and he left the room. I still got my husband on the phone. I said, I'll call you back. I hung up. The intern and the doctor came running back into the room. The doctor comes over, lifts up the bandage. It is healed shut. And I mean, that was a shock to all of us. And he looks up at the intern and he says, what's going on here? He was mad at her. He thought she lied to him. She goes, look, the bed and the floor was soaked with blood. He goes, oh, and he had this real shifty look on him. And my sixth sense kicked in. I knew something was up. And I said, oh, by the way, did you save that hernia for me? Now, at the time, I didn't know really what a hernia was. I just thought there was something in there that they take out.
Right.
And he says, oh, I forgot to save it. And he left the room. Well, I was in that room for 3 days. They would not release me. The only person I saw was the intern. And she even brought my meals. Brought my meals in, cleaned the room, everything. No one else was allowed to go in that room. By the third day, I knew there was something very suspicious happening, but I pretended like I didn't suspect anything and got out of there. So several years later, I had a regression done by a hypnotist who works with abductees. And she said that, well, when she put me through this, I saw during the surgery, I saw the surgeon chasing something that was moving that had little tiny legs on it. It looked like a long grain of rice, and it was dark, and it was moving every time he tried to grab it. He finally got it. He put it in a piece of gauze, put it in a plastic baggie and in his coat pocket, and he told the intern to sew me up. She didn't do a very good job.
Wow.
That's why it wasn't sewn right. And then I see him go out into the hall and make a phone call. A few minutes later, a man comes in, walks over to him, and he hands him what's in that package, but also all of my records, all my medical records.
Oh my
The
God.
man left. And he was dressed in a suit. So, yeah, since then I've got a couple more, but I am not having them taken out.
Oh my God. And I know Tim and Paranormal Soul Brother have things that ask you. Tim, you look like you got something you want to get off your chest. Oh, you're on mute.
Okay. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, much better.
It was more of a comment rather than a question, but she said that the surgeon was having a little trouble catching this thing. I've heard that before from other cases where they are trying to take out an implant. I know Whitley Strieber told me that the one that he had, I think it was behind his ear, was moving around, and that he had a doctor actually look at it and try to pinpoint where it was, but it kept moving under his fingers, under his skin.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's I've heard that kind of story before about the implants being a little bit more active than they should be.
Yeah, I've since I tell my witnesses that I work with to leave them alone, because what's going to happen is whoever they are that's putting them in will know it, and they'll come back and put 2 more in its place.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll trigger a visit.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and Paul, the interesting, and Margie, the interesting thing about the implants that have been removed and actually analyzed is that they're normally found to be of very terrestrial origin, which has always been kind of odd because they exhibit weird characteristics. They move around. There seems to be some kind of radio interference at times with their locations. Yet when they are removed, they're just normal terrestrial pieces of metal. There was one that had actually ended up being part of a meteorite, which that one was unique, but all the other ones just very normal terrestrial ingredients, which to me makes it even more suspect.
Well, it does, and one of the theories is that it's actually our government that's implanting people whom they know are abductees so they can keep track of us. That's one of the theories. However, there is one case I worked where the person managed to get the implant out by herself, and then Well, actually, I know a few people who've gotten them out by themselves, but this one put it in a glass container, put the lid on it immediately, and she was gonna. She brought it to me the next day, and it was almost completely gone. But while we were sitting there watching it, it disappeared, completely dissolved. There was no residue left, nothing. It's like they know if they're out of a body uh, because of the heat or something, that they just disappear.
Oh my God. I know Paranormal Soul Brother has something to ask you. I can just tell by looking at him.
Oh no, no. There's so much interesting commentary. Tim, when he said about the meteorite, that I'd never heard a story like that. That's incredible. Margie, how are you? I was just gonna say, when you talked about the implants, I had a friend that lives in Sunnyvale near Moffett Field, and they had an experience where when they saw a light coming through the walls, they woke up in the morning with like a burnt triangle on the navel and a piece of flesh wire that came out of the ear while they were washing their face. The flesh wire came out, but it was a wire, and they thought to try to get it, but it did go down the drain. So it came out, I guess, involuntarily. But what they noticed is that it was a wire, almost colored like the skin, and then there's an implant in the back that got hard, like soft, like what Paul said, but then almost like metal at times. And she wanted to scream when the light came through the wall. She said, but she could. Only thing she could really move is like her eyes just a little bit, and her mother was in the next room. So, but that's the only thing I've first, kind of, I guess, secondhand experience of with implants. But that was interesting what you said. If you take them out, they'll put more back in.
Yeah. And sometimes these implants have like a living membrane that encircles it. Yeah,
That's what the wire sounded like. It sounded like her skin was just the flesh. It was covered with that. But like for something like that to come out your ear, and I mean, you know your body, so it's
that would be freaky.
Yeah. And Margie, if you had this implant, they must have been visiting you over and over and over again. I mean, did you experience like lights coming through the windows? Did you experience these grays going through the walls and appearing by your bedside?
Yeah, my entire life, things like that happened. When I was 15, it's the first time I recall seeing lights, and I also recall being very young and hearing drums, like Indian war drums, that nobody else could hear. And that lasted till I was about 9 years old. And my brother heard them as well. He was younger than me. And then when we got to be a certain age, we did not hear those drums anymore. But I was always afraid of them because what would follow would be a lightning storm, or what I thought was a lightning storm, because I would see the flashes of blue-white light outside, but there would be no rain that accompanied it. And occasionally some thunder or something that sounded like thunder or rumble. But when I was 15, this incident occurred in a house in Springfield, Missouri, where I lived at the time. And I'd had an argument with my mother, went up to my bedroom. I was sitting on my bed in the dark, and all of a sudden, through the window with the closed shade, was this blue-white blinding light that came in and lit up the room. I mean, it was just lit up, and I'm trying to figure out what the heck that is because it was coming from outside. And then I look over at my dressing table mirror, and in the mirror, I see this woman in a black dress with a high collar and a big black hat, kind of like 1900 period, with a butcher knife in her hand, and a younger woman in a white dress with no hat, and she was stabbing her. And here I am, 15 years old. I'm watching this scene. It was like watching a television show, only better quality, in the mirror. And then that faded out. And then a phantom music stand appeared in the middle of the room. an old-fashioned music stand, and it rose up and then just came towards me, and I thought it was going to hit me. I just closed my eyes and waited for it, and it never did. It just kind of went through me. And so later on, I'm trying to figure all of this out, and how does this fit with an ET craft outside, which I now know that had to be, okay, and watching an event that occurred in that house in the past, because we found out a physician was in that house. It was built on, first of all, a Civil War battlefield. The house was built in the late 1800s, and right around 1900 to 1930, this woman lived there. I can't remember her name, but she was from France, and she had a daughter named Alice, okay? And then we can't find a record of Alice after a certain age. So I'm surmising that this woman dressed in black, and by the way, the woman was in mourning. Her husband had died. So that house was so haunted that I always wanted to do an investigation on it. And that's why my partner, Violet Wisdom, is my co-author. We just published a book a couple months ago called How to Research Your Haunted House. Excuse me. And what we did, we used that house as a model. And so she did the research, the back research, historical research, which I don't have training in, but she does. She's a pro. And she found the woman who lived there, her daughter's name. And by the way, my sister's name is Alice, and her room was the most haunted in the entire house. It was so haunted that she wouldn't sleep in her bed because that's where the ghost would go, in the middle of the room. She slept in the closet. It was a big closet, but I mean, she got her mattress in there, and she slept in there the whole time because it was so haunted. And we couldn't wait to get out of that house. But yeah, and the other thing is, you know, you've got a haunting here, you've got ET, right?
Mixed, they're together.
Things, they seem to be all of these paranormal events, you know, time anomalies, poltergeist activity, very common for ET experiencers to have all of those things happening to them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's the first question we ask. When Paul turns me loose, I usually ask them that, and I say 8 times out of 10, they've had those experiences. As a matter of fact, Paul, you remember when we went to the White Witch's house in Granite Bay?
Yes.
Okay, well, the thing about Granite Bay is I know a gentleman in Granite Bay who was actually having pictures of like really deep orbs, like strong lit balls come in his backyard, but then the shield would go down. You see these little men in there. He kept showing this, and people were coming out there giving him trouble. So his videos, I told him, I says, man, you're kind of flipping out, because he started saying, hey, you guys think you know what this is about? You want to get famous off this? It's about love. He said, you guys got the wrong message. And he come with no shirt on, and he started like somebody was antagonizing him, telling him, hey, man, stop showing that, or, you know, what are you doing? So he started showing more. But the footage he had was so incredible. Like, I've never seen him come this close to anybody. And that shield, he says, look. And when you would see the little bodies behind the shield, after he showed that, I talked to the witch's daughter, because she didn't know this gentleman. So I wanted to know, I said, have you guys, seen anything, in this? And they said, oh yeah. They said, and they were quiet the whole time, really serious, just watching up the children. But as soon as I asked one of them, she said that they would sit there for a half hour watching a ball of looks like electricity on the lawn, and to where they just got scared. They didn't know what it would do. And the most peculiar thing she said was that it looked like they were cloaked. She said it seemed like it was some beings or creatures that were cloaked, because she saw them zip something up. She said it reminded her of the Predator, for lack of a better description. She said it. Yeah, she said it reminded her of Predator. But we went to, it was a haunted house that we went to. I mean, they were talking about, apparitions and poltergeists. And of course, like I said, the mother was a white witch, and they would talk about the Moon Festival and different things. But I found that pretty much 8 out of 10 of the houses we go to, they've had them. Do you remember Yvonne? Remember Yvonne that was always calling like every 5 minutes? She had so much stuff, and you were like,
yeah.
well, she would have the craft like right in her trees with the orbs and the apparitions in the back, everything just mixed together. But
Yeah.
Margie, I think you're 1,000% correct.
Yeah, I would love to see that footage because I've got two pictures from two different places of a ball of light with a little being inside of it. It looks like an ET sitting at a console. He's like got his hands out, like little teeny tiny, like the size of a softball.
Oh yeah, yeah. Those balls, you never know. See, a lot of people say, they go, "Why is the footage so blurry?" And they say this and that. But what they don't know is that when you look with the naked eye, you see one thing. But there are not many cameras, unless you want to spend about $15,000, that can, and even then, can handle the glare and show you the shape. It's if they want you to see it. Most times, they can take that glare off. It's times where you can catch a ship. I guess if they want you to, because we've all gotten pictures of better ones, but most times when it's a ball of light, a color light, you don't know what's behind that Merkaba, body, ship, whatever, so.
Right.
Zandine, did you go to the investigation where this lady, she was an alien abductee, and she said that she was abducted 3 times and had 3 false pregnancies. And then one special night, she looks out in her wooden balcony, and there's 3 gray alien females, long hair. They had the gray features with the long eyes and everything else.
Wow.
And they were standing on her patio, looking through the window. She was petrified with fear. And they start moving around in a strange way. She said it actually looked like some type of dancing. And then they just took off. I mean,
These are kids, maybe, huh? You're thinking of maybe her kids, huh?
Yeah, it could be her kids. Yeah, it was so weird. I mean, and
Wow.
she showed us an area in her backyard, and she said it was a saucer nest, and it was in a circle. And like, yeah, that is just so bizarre. That is a strange phenomenon.
What city was that in, Paul?
That was in Placerville.
Oh wow, right down. Okay, wow.
Yeah,
Got to go back and.
I think that's before you joined us. Yeah,
that's fascinating.
Margie, what are some of the notable places that you've investigated? I know you've done a lot of investigations. How many investigations have you been on, and what are some of the notable places?
Okay, well, UFO and paranormal investigations about 2,000.
Okay.
Okay.
Right,
and well, first of all, that house I just mentioned is the most haunted house in Missouri, bar none. But it's owned by a private person. The people move in, they move out right away. Nobody stays there. Most of the time when I go by that house, if I make a trip to Springfield from Kansas City, there's nobody there. And but the ghosts are there. So that one is. But right across the street from that is Drury College, also built on the Civil War battlefield. They have a number of ghosts. Then there's Pythian Hall or Pythian Castle, which is right next to it. It is a huge property, and they've got all kinds of stuff happening there. They only have it open for ghost tours now. It's not anything that it used to be. It's a huge place. One of the biggest UFO cases I ever worked, excuse me. Sometimes when I try to talk about this stuff, it's almost like something's trying to stop me.
Something, Margie, I'm going to tell you something. Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break pretty soon.
Okay.
We have 8 minutes left, and we'll take a 10-minute break, and you'll be sent another link so we can finish off the interview. So okay. You got 8 minutes. You can go ahead and tell your story for those 8 minutes right now.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you one of the biggest UFO cases ever.
Okay.
All right. So this started in October of 2011 on the early morning 4th of October. There was a flying team who was practicing to go over the Chiefs Stadium for the Super Bowl or the playoffs. And that team had 6 planes that all had flashing lights on them, and they were flying in formation very close. People saw them all over the city, mistook it for a UFO. However, a real UFO came in, huge, at the same time, actually a few minutes after the landing of the aircraft. So a few minutes after that, a man in Raytown, Missouri, sees a big UFO over a water tower. And he thought, well, maybe it's taking water out of the tower. Then a woman in Raytown, a little bit closer to where we're going, sees a big UFO come up over a shopping center, like maybe only 100 feet above her. Scared her to death. Completely silent, no means of propulsion, just moving above her very quietly and only a few lights on it. Then it gets to Raytown, Kansas City intersection at 23rd and 63rd Street, or I-435. There's a mine there. And the craft was hovering over the mine. So this group of people see the craft. And one guy on the ground hollers to a guy on the 3rd floor, look at that. The guy on the 3rd floor starts taking pictures with his flash camera. We think that it saw that, got attention, and moved over to them. So this huge craft stops 6 feet above the ground and is hovering there. The guy on the top is taking pictures from above of the craft. It was partially transparent. It had lights all over the bottom. They didn't look like normal straight lines or circles with the lights. They looked like they were living, breathing things. And the whole craft seemed like it was breathing. Well, the guy on the ground, Clarence, has this compulsion to walk over to the craft. And guy on top and his wife are screaming at Clarence, do not go. Do not go there. He did it anyway. He stood 20 feet away and he stopped. And some green mist came out over the top of him while these people are watching this. And he was in a trance-like state. Now, to him, he was taking pictures the whole time and never stopped. To the man up above, he was taking pictures with a camera. The other one was a cell phone. This is a camera. He was taking pictures nonstop. Okay? Then a staircase comes down and an entity comes out of the craft. Now, Clarence is taking pictures. He saw it with his naked eye and he got pictures of it. Then the entity went back in, the craft went up, and then it went up north on 435, where we got other witnesses to the craft. So I've got a timeline on every minute that craft was in the area. It was here for a long time, about 30 minutes of time or more. And so they call me, I go investigate, I'm talking to the men, and they put an SD card in the television to show me the pictures. I thought, I'm going to take a picture of the screen just in case. So I took a couple pictures of the screen of this craft from looking down on the craft. And it had actually been hovering, and then it went up and made a loud, super loud noise that sounded like an alien spacecraft moving. Went up on end before all of this stuff happened. And there were also about 7 children who were there, ranging in age from 14 on down, who witnessed this, and the 3 adults. Well, Clarence, right after the event, left. And they're screaming at him, you can't leave. We just had a UFO here. You can't leave. I have to leave. He ends up at the Kaw River in the morning, wakes up, has no idea why he went there or how he got there. So anyway, they show me the pictures. I take the SD card. I go right to my office. I put it in. There's no pictures on there. They had been erased. in between time by
Wow.
somebody who didn't want people to see. But I have those pictures, and I have Clarence's pictures of the ET. He has not given me permission to release them to the public yet, but they will be coming out.
Wow. Wow, that's big.
And since then, get this, Clarence has healing abilities now that he didn't have before. His whole life has changed. He used to hang out with some rough guys, you know, doing stuff, and he doesn't do that anymore. And he's a committed family man. He's, you know, he tries to help his friends out. He heals people, and he can also fix cars by touching them.
You know, it's so funny that you said that, because when I was working at Department of Health Services, a scientist who I was really good friends with, he was born in Spain. He was doing terrible in school. One day, he's sitting on a hill. He sees a UFO. It hovers, and he looks at it and prays to it and says, "Please make me smart." The very next day at school, he started whipping out those papers, getting A's on everything, and became a scientist.
Yeah.
And he swears up and down that the story is true.
I've got a story along those lines too, if you want to hear it.
Okay. And we have, 1 minute and 30 seconds. And everybody's coming back. Tim, you're coming back. And
Absolutely.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Phil's going to give us another link. I'll make sure everybody has the link. We'll get back on. I know Paranormal Soul Brother has some more questions. He loves UFOs. And Tim, of course, he writes about UFOs, cryptids, ghosts, demons, you name it. So I got two good authors, Margie and Tim, right there. And I got a good dancer named Paranormal Soul Brother.
From dancing to UFOs, huh?
Yeah.
I'm a blues singer like Taj Mahal, like Jackie, or more like Jackie Wilson or James Brown, but the bio wasn't finished yet.
Oh man, well, we got a lot to talk about because I'm a jazz bassist,
Well,
like professionally for 20 years.
There you go. There you go.
Love blues and jazz.
jazz never coming back to the root. No, that's some hard business right there. Ooh. That means you're really smart. You're really smart.
Well, we'll talk about that after the break because I'll tell you how that happened.
Hey, if I see a UFO, make me smart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just tell everybody to do that.
She's the real deal. She's the real deal. That jazz seals the deal right there.
Holy cow, we're getting some interesting stories here. Margie, I want you to go ahead and take it away.
Okay, well, we were talking about fogginess, like a brain fog, okay, and then getting smarter later. So this happened to me. Growing up, I was really only interested in music, acting, writing, things like that, right brain stuff. And I just could not understand science and math. It just was not there. I had a devil of a time. And when I went to college, my first year, I was terrible. I got a D in math. It was awful. And this is just basic math. It was like there was just brain fog whenever I would go into a classroom that had to do with one of those subjects.
Margie,
Well-
I feel you. I was terrible in math.
Okay, well, ask the ETs for help because they'll help you. Yeah, that's pretty much what happened to me, but it was a bizarre experience. I was about 3.5 months pregnant and my husband was, no. First of all, I get the measles. I wake up one morning, see these dots all over my face, and the obstetrician said that the baby was probably going to be mentally retarded, which is the term they used back then. But this voice came in my head and said, it's going to be okay. And so I knew that the baby was not going to be mentally retarded. So I was not worried about it. Well, a couple weeks later, I'm laying on my bed and reading about 3 o'clock in the morning. I was always a night owl because, being a musician, you get used to that and you don't, go to sleep at a normal time. And right.
Yeah, that's the best threshold right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So 3 o'clock is the witching hour for UFOs, by the way. That's when a lot of the activity happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I remember lying on bed. I had my elbow up like this. I'm reading something, and I look up to see a bright blue light coming in the window. And we were in a basement apartment, and it was a window that was high up. And here's this beam of light coming in. And then I remember nothing else. I look at the clock, and it's an hour and a half later, but I'm in the exact same position. Now, if you're leaning on your arm like this, you can't stay there for an hour and a half like that. And so I thought that was odd. I'm trying to figure that out. And all of a sudden, I feel pins and needles all over my body. It was horrible. And I called my husband. He worked nights, and he came to take me to the hospital. Bizarre set of circumstances. It began pouring down rain. I mean, just the worst rain ever. As we're getting on the highway, he slams into the curb on the left side and blows out both tires.
Oh my God.
We end up on the far left side of the highway, which is the worst place to have to stop. He has to get out in the driving rainstorm and walk for miles to get to a phone to call someone. There's no cell phones back then.
Man.
A highway patrolman pulls over on the right side of the road, does not get out. I get out of the vehicle and wave at him and yell for help, and he takes off and leaves me.
Whoa.
The rain was unusually warm, I noticed. It was very strange. So anyway, we eventually make it to the hospital. By then it's very, very, very late. They check me out. And I had scratched so bad. There were scratch marks, but by then there was nothing. They couldn't find anything. I didn't have a fever. I didn't have high blood pressure, nothing. So he asked me, have you been under stress lately? I'm like, you know how they do. So they took me home. I get in bed because I'm dead tired by that point. And then I get a sunburn rash all over my body as if I had just been in the sun for hours. It was kind of welted, raised up, red rash, and my temperature starts to go up. I called my mother to come take care of my older daughter because my husband sleeps during the day. And I said, you got to come over here and watch her because I'm very sick. Well, my temperature kept going up. The last time I checked it, it was 108.
Ouch.
But then I could no longer speak and I couldn't move. And I felt myself lifting up. Now, this is exactly 12 hours later because it's 3 p.m. I looked at the clock. I was raising up out of my body and I just thought, oh, this is what death is. I'm dying. I can't call for help. Nothing. So I'm raising up and all of a sudden I slammed back down in my body. It hurt. And then all of that sickness feeling went away and my temperature went down to normal and the red rash just slowly went away, dissipated. Well, I found out years later, that's exposure to radiation. Those symptoms that I had, the pins and needles, the nausea, the red rash, that's radiation. So I knew for years that something had happened, but I didn't know exactly what. So I had a regression done. During the regression, I see 2 ETs. They're pretty tall. They're maybe 5.5 feet tall. Tannish color. Came in the room, laid me down flat, cut my stomach open, took the fetus out. One of them is holding it, little tiny fetus in his left hand. And he has this object that looks like this rectangle with a bunch of lights on the bottom of it. And he runs that over the fetus. And then he puts it back in. And they had, by the way, I saw a red laser open me up. And then they used a blue laser to seal it back up. And there was no scar. Yeah, details.
Wow.
So after that experience, my brain started to function. I started to understand math and science, and I went back to school. And all of a sudden, I'm getting A's in Algebra 1, A's to Algebra 2, A's to physics, astronomy, everything. And by the time I was done, I had a 3.8 GPA. It wasn't 4.0 because of my first year that was bad. And so my IQ jumped quite a bit after that experience. Now, what they did to also with the radiation, give me and both of my daughters thyroid disease. And we still have it today, which has been a problem. But other than that, the baby was very intelligent. She was not mentally retarded. There was a reason they stepped in. They knew about it.
You know, it's funny because when I was in the military and I was at this base, Camp Bogart, I was laying in bed and I was thinking about home. And I felt it was like an astral projection, my astral body leaving my astral body. And I could see myself laying there and I totally freaked out. Oh, and before I left my body, there was a huge crackling noise. And then while I was up there, when I got scared, I hit my body again. I was inside my body.
Yeah. And it hurts when you go back in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. When you're scared, it will do that.
Wow. That is
Margie, considering all of the experiences that you've had throughout your life and starting at a very young age, and I ask this with a lot of people, do you know, does any of this run in your family on either side, either your father's or your mother's? I mean, do you know, I mean, if like maybe your mother, your grandmother, your great grandmother on either side have had similar experiences?
None to the extent that I have. However, my mother and her mother were both very, what they would call intuitive. You know, we would call it psychic now. They knew things and they saw things. My grandmother saw fairies. You know, when I first came to her when I was like 10 years old, said, "Grandma, there's fairies outside." She goes, "Yeah, I know. I planted the lilies of the valley there for them because that's their favorite flower." I'm like, what? You know? And then on my father's side, they were geniuses. Very, very high IQs, engineers, chiropractors, naturopaths, all that. My grandfather that appeared to me when I was like 10, he played 300 instruments. That's where I get the music from. And he was a vaudeville. He taught vaudeville, big stars. He taught them how to dance and sing and play. And also very intuitive. And then my father ended up being a wizard. As surprising as that is.
Really?
I mean, yeah, I hadn't seen him for a long time. We lost touch after my parents got divorced. And the next time I saw him, he was a wizard. So yeah, it comes from both sides.
Yeah. Why do you think? Because yourself and other people, it's usually not just, oh, I saw a ghost and that's it for the rest of their life, or, oh, I saw a UFO and then that's it for, no, it's a continuing affair throughout your life with all kinds of, your grandmother saw fairies. It wouldn't surprise me if she didn't see a UFO or two, in her life, but just didn't know how to,
They wouldn't have talked about it.
There was no concept of UFO. What's that weird thing in the sky? Who knows? Let's continue our daily routes. But why do you think? Why do you think that all of these things seem to be part of the same spectrum? It's because you have a lot of people who are researchers and investigators on, say, ghost and they refuse to even consider the concept of UFOs. UFOs, that's crazy stuff. That sort of attitude.
I know. And the
But
UFO people say the same thing about the ghost people.
exactly. And cryptid creatures. I mean,
Yeah.
people who have UFO and ghostly experiences will also have cryptids knocking on their doors in the middle of the night. Why do you think that is? What is it that we are missing, when it comes to this kind of activity?
Yeah, I have a very strong opinion on that. I believe what it is our level of consciousness, our level of vibration. If a person meditates on a regular basis, gets into an altered state of consciousness and becomes used to that, then these things become more commonplace because you're in tune with fifth dimension and higher dimensions. It's all it is I figured out that when I go into an altered state, because I do readings for people. I do 9 readings a week for people, remote viewing. Okay. So I have to be able to drop myself in, and I can do it immediately into a trance-like state and have a conversation and remote view somebody. But what I'm doing is raising my level of consciousness, and I'm moving myself into a higher dimension. That's what I think is going on. And that's why where all of this ghosts, spirits, ETs are in the higher dimensions. So if you're moving yourself into that, you're going to see all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah. You know what? You have a good point. Or lower dimensions. With the chakras, or the lakas and the tolas, that declassified document that the CIA had put out there, whether it's real or not, about interdimensional beings visiting us and saying, don't think of us as from a planet, but think of us as from a dimension, from a vibratory level. So,
yes,
at CERN, they would talk about anywhere from 8 to 18 dimensions that they're saying they know of. And I was wondering, when they say that they're stacked on top of each other. So when you say like ghosts, poltergeists, cryptids, what if at any time these things, for, like she said, frequencies, vibrational levels, people's consciousness, they just happen to overlap? Because it actually happens to some people and not others. And her point of the things that she's saying, I've heard people that I know personally and I trust and love, and when you hear them say that and it didn't happen to you, it can conflict you if it never happened, because you're like, I know they're not crazy. Like, are they mistaken? I know this person doesn't drink or they don't smoke. I can't figure out any reason to not believe them. And so when they say incredible things like that, and I do, and Tim's right. I do know families. Well, I know 2 families where it's happened to everybody at different times. 2 brothers at the same time in 2 separate rooms would see the same thing, but the sister didn't see it till later. But back to what she saying about the vibratory levels and consciousness, Tim, that's probably got to be one of the keys. What do you think, Tim? I mean, they overlap, at times.
Yeah, possibly, but that's I'm actually I got to take that Zandine and turn it around to Margie, because and I'm sorry now, I can't remember his name, the person that you had talked about earlier in the show, who got enveloped by the green mist from the landed UFO and then became a healer.
Yeah.
Clarence, okay. Do you think that this was a situation where this had been planned, that this person had been deliberately earmarked to have this happen, or was he just in the wrong place at the wrong time, or the right place at the right time? And this experience then leaves almost like a side effect on people, that then you're now open inadvertently, but now you're open to all of this.
And it's kind of interesting too, the green mist. The green mist is found in a lot of situations and cases, like the Versailles time slip, where the Mobley and that other lady, they walked into a green mist and they found themselves back in Renaissance France. The guy, the Bermuda Triangle, the guy was flying the airplane and he gets over to Florida just like in a half hour.
Yeah.
He hits green mist and he's back. He's back in this reality.
Margie, that blue light
Yeah.
as well, though. That blue light that you talked about. A lot of people talk about getting taken through walls and have, going past the laws of physics as well. That like that Manhattan case where the lady was taken through the apartment building like 9 stories up in
Yeah.
front of a congressman as his brigade. And then the lady next door thought that it was Steven Spielberg movie at first. She was a 911 operator, but I don't know if you remember that one, but she said about the blue
Oh, yeah.
light.
Yeah, the ETs told me what the blue light is, but several years
okay.
ago, they said they use that in order to change the molecular structure of walls and windows so that solid objects can transport through them.
Makes sense. Wow. Makes sense.
Wow. That's interesting. Margie,
Anyway.
what are some of the other notable places that you've been to and everything?
Oh, goodness. I'm trying to think of, okay. St. Clair, Missouri. Big case. There's a forthcoming book about this. A number of us investigated it. Debbie Ziegelmeyer, the state director for Missouri MUFON, Melvin Vickles, the chief investigator for Missouri MUFON, Lynn Mann is the lab analyst, Gene Walker, investigator from Kansas City, and me. We've all been there. This is a big case. It's UFOs all over the place, right on the Merrimack River. Very a case of high strangeness. This man was seeing these glowing balls in the water in the river moving around, UFOs on a nightly basis, bright white lights coming in very close and then moving away, ETs standing on the porch with him and very close to him and sitting in chairs along with him.
Yeah.
What he thought was poltergeist and ghost activity in his house turned out to be ETs. When I went there, I figured that out. Yeah, so we're there and we go out on the sandbar so we can get close out on the Merrimack and find out what's going on. Well, we saw some UFOs. And we debunked a few lights that he thought were UFOs, and they were house lights, those big outdoor lights. But while I'm looking through my high-powered binoculars back towards the shore, I'm trying to determine one of the lights, and I said, oh, yeah, that's an outdoor light on the pole, Okay, it's not a UFO. And then I look down, I see movement on the ground to my left, and I see this thing about 12, 14 inches tall, very thin, skinny. You know those little worm-like figures in the movies? What's that UFO movie? They made 3 episodes of it. No. This was a funny one. It was
Paul.
No, not Paul. Not Paul. I got another Paul story, but this one.
Paul E.T.
Anyway, these were like little worm-like figures. They were, they would smoke cigarettes and stuff.
Men in Black.
Yeah, Men in Black. Yes.
Men in Black.
Okay.
There you go.
One of those things looked very similar to that. Is standing there, and he's looking at this black box on the ground. And then he goes back underneath the bushes, and he comes back out, sneaks back out, messing with that black box. I'm looking through my binoculars. I can't believe what I'm looking at. But the word fairy comes in my head. I'm like, okay. So then I looked up fairies, and evidently they come in all sizes, which I didn't know before that. So I saw that thing several times. Debbie was standing right next to me. She didn't see it, but I did. So anyway, we go back to our group. Something yanks on my coat, and I turn around and look, and nobody's behind me. And nobody was there to yank on my coat like that. I mean, just really yanked on it. It was like something was really low to the ground, yanking on it. I think it was one of those things, trying to get my attention. Well, then we're looking across the sandbar, and we see there's a bush over there, and there is an extraterrestrial standing behind the bush, peeking out at us and going back and peeking out, and we all saw that. In the meantime, Gene Walker has her night vision, and she's looking behind us, the other direction. She sees a Sasquatch walking along behind the bushes and everything. We're like, okay, what else can we bring here? We've got fairies, Sasquatch, extraterrestrials, and UFOs. You can't beat that.
No,
You get 4 for 1.
Oh yeah, and when I went to Scotland and I went to Ireland, they take fairies very seriously.
Oh yeah, they're real.
Oh yeah, Paul.
And a lot of the Irish people, they believe that fairies are extraterrestrials because you have the little grays, and they can put you in partial paralysis with a little wand, and fairies have that. There's false pregnancies with grays and fairies.
Yeah.
There's saucer nests, cross circles, all that stuff. It connects and it seems similar.
Yeah, my book Winged Aliens is all about that. I think the Mothman and the winged cryptids, even and pterodactyls, the interdimensional. I'm going interdimensional with pterodactyls, but I believe a lot of these winged creatures are actually ETs.
Yeah, you know what you said about the creatures, about seeing those all in one place like that. The guy I was telling you about that have those balls that come close to him, that you say you would like to see the footage. The last time, I think one of the worst things that probably got him in trouble, and I don't know him to be like a cartoonist or, you know, animated. I've been down to Hollywood. I don't know him to be part of that world, camera wise or any technique. Not saying he isn't, but he was getting really upset. And one day he showed some more footage. He started putting his head to the right and asking you to basically look down. He said, "You guys don't know anything. You don't know anything." But when you look down, it was this little green, and it looked kind of wet. No stop motion like those Steven Spielberg movies or anything. None of that delayed, eye blinking, Play-Doh finger stuff. This thing looked just like a little being. It had smaller arms, smaller fingers, a bigger head, kind of bigger mouth. Eyes weren't super big, bigger than normal, and it was just sitting there and kind of like a smile. Now, I don't know how he did it. I just know I saw the footage, and he had it on YouTube. Now it got taken down, this whole thing that got shut down, but he was, he just kept looking to the right, and I knew that he was getting egged on by somebody to keep showing, because he had a lot of stuff. He also would look at trees. Now, he didn't profess this was how real or not this was, but he would look at trees, see faces, see things, and say, "Hey, this is a being too. Everything is alive." Like the Dogon would say, any old ancestors, everything is alive. So he's rocks. He'd have rocks, anything. So he got to another level, but he really was super conscious, and he had some really good footage. So that right there, I mean, I don't know, how he did that or got that, but it was, it was public record, but it looked pretty good. I mean, it looked authentic.
Yeah, it probably
But you never know. This was before AI. We're talking like, well, I mean, AI has probably been out on the private sector, but you're talking like, early 2000s. So.
Well, YouTube, it takes things down that if we're getting too close to the truth, they'll take it down.
Yeah.
I've had several shows taken down. We have to be careful about the words that we use.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we went over to Rumble, but then it turns out you got to be careful on Rumble too.
Oh yeah, Margie, have you ever been harassed by the Men in Black?
Yes.
My Labs? What about My Labs?
Yeah.
Whoa.
And I suspect I was in the SSP as well.
Whoa, that's heavy. That's deep.
I was in the military. I was at Whiteman, near Whiteman Air Force Base in Warrensburg, CMSU, when I went to Warrensburg. I had, missing time, all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny. When I was stationed in Seoul, Korea, at Yongsan Barracks, I was with the 501st Military Intelligence Group, and we took a trip to the 38th parallel, and there's a conference table. So one side of the conference table belongs to South Korea. The other side of the conference table belongs to North Korea. We could not wear our insignia because the North Koreans would know we're military intelligence. So we had to wear black suits, black tie, blah, blah, blah. And you think about it, we were the men in black. I mean, they didn't know who we were. And it was so funny. They told all of us not to touch the North Korean side of the table. Guess what I did? While we're walking around,
Oh no!
I accidentally put my camera down because I was changing the film. And my captain looked at me and goes, "What the hell are you doing? You're going to cause an international incident."
Oh my God!
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking. I just put the camera down and oh God.
Oh man.
But yeah, especially with your situation, Margie. Yeah, I would expect that you would be harassed a lot.
Oh yeah, they've tapped our Comcast lines. We caught them 3 times messing with the Comcast lines at various in the middle of the night and also at noon. And I got camera footage of it, and then it disappeared off my camera. But they were up there. You know, anytime we pick up a phone, we quit using a phone system. We have no landlines in my office anymore because it would take 40 seconds to connect because it has to go through something else first. And I confirmed it with Comcast that we were being tapped by the FBI. Wow. They told me. So, yeah, I knew. I see vehicles following me. If I'm going on a big case, we will be followed. And one of them trapped me one time in a cul-de-sac. One of them came along and moved so that I could not get out. And then it took off. They were just giving us a message that they're watching us. But the thing I don't understand is we don't know any more than they do. Why are they doing this? They know more than us about the subject. The only thing we could figure is they're following us and they're trying to figure things out as well. Looking at investigating these cases. And unfortunately, I'm sure that every single one of the witnesses are being investigated as well.
Yeah, I have my doubts that they may know that much more than the rest of us. I think that's one of the reasons for their interest in everybody else. They're trying to find out like we are. I mean, yeah, the government, the military, they may have some good pictures, some good videos, but I'm still kind of out there wondering whether or not they've actually been able to capture, say, like, crashed UFOs or things like that. I think that, they know that something's up, but like the rest of us, nobody knows exactly what's going on.
Right. And then,
what if, because some people now, lately, Margie, Margie, you probably heard this. Some people are saying, and I'm trying to remember what this gentleman's name was the last story I heard, but that some of the entities are saying, hey, no, not now. Like they're the ones doing some of the stopping of some of the release of information. Some, just as many grains of sand as there are. I mean, they talk about 67 different species, but I'm sure there's like, so
there's
many
more than that.
So yeah, I'm sure there's like billions, trillions,
Yeah.
But as far as I'm sure there's some that maybe don't want it revealed or don't feel it's time. Who knows? If you remember Credo Mutwa, who was with David Icke, like his mentor, started him with the reptilian thing. Credo Mutwa was saying, he said, "Hey man, we've been shown by the Uomo, we've been shown civilizations by the Nomo that have crashed and burned from going too fast." So they said, you think we go slow, and we're like, they said, sometimes it's not too good to go too fast. You might crash and burn. So,
well, I think a lot of it has to do with the public's readiness to hear that we're not the only intelligent life in the universe, because there are still a group of people who would find that very disturbing. Yeah. And I think it's a slow process over many, many years. They've probably been working on this for eons. And then they pick out certain people to work with so that we can spread the word to others and get them prepared for this. But Yeah.
But they've already. What about the ones that's probably been here the whole time? You know,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure if they have the technology, I don't know if they have, but you know, if they have and the influence, it's just it's just so many angles to it. Though, but what do you think about that?
I
If they the
think
ones
that
that already,
I think
yeah, have they
ETs,
tampered with it? Yeah.
some ETs have been here before humans, and some of them actually created humans using their DNA and
Interesting.
other. And, we've got a time period where, yeah, if you read Sitchin, kind of makes sense because all of a sudden we got very intelligent humans, and they're helping the Anunnaki mine gold. And, you go down the slippery slope, you can't get out of the rabbit hole finding all of this information. I just found out. Now, I've known about caves in Kansas City for a long time. There's lots and lots of caves, but someone has done a lot more research, and there are creatures living underground, under these
Wow.
caves around under the whole city. And so
Wow.
that's another thing for me to investigate.
What were they saying
Um,
about it? What do they look like?
uh, just creepy, slimy creatures. That's
Wow.
all of I've heard right now, but I'm sure there's more. So I've got to look into it. But
That whole
I,
area is lit though. That whole area is magical. I mean, isn't it Egyptian connection and all this? I mean, I'm hearing that all this stuff is happening in the southern
yes,
states, Alabama,
part of
Missouri.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, part of it is they're finding Egyptian hieroglyphs in these caves that are on the walls.
Wow.
And Missouri is known as the show me state, yes, but also the cave state,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we have
Oh, okay.
so many natural caves. But here's the other thing: we've been hearing for years. We heard this humming sound at night, be asleep. It's the only time you could hear it was when it was quiet, but the house would vibrate, and it just constant humming, 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 and it went on for years. And this quit about 3 years ago. But we think they were drilling more passageways and more caves underground. And people heard it all over the city
Wow.
for years. And some people couldn't sleep because of it. But we called everybody, called the city,
Yeah,
called
yeah.
the mining people, called everyone. They say, no, nothing's going on. We're not digging. We're not doing anything. Well, somebody's digging, because that sound is coming from underground.
Yes. All night long. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow.
there's just stuff going on everywhere, but Kansas City seems to be a very, very strange place. We've got everything imaginable here.
That's what I've been hearing. Hey, Tim, to tie on what she said, I wanted to ask you about the mongoose that you told me about before, Tim.
Yeah, Jeff the talking
Yeah.
mongoose.
How do you equate? Because I know, like you've heard a lot of stuff, you've seen a lot, like so that seemed really compelling to you. I want to know what element of that's compelling could you connect to some of the phenomenon that happens other people saying, because you like that story resonates with you, but you really, it seemed like it really was Jeff really here doing those things.
Well, it resonates with me because it was the type of mystery that has never repeated itself, is probably one of the most
Ah,
interesting aspects of it. Um, uh, and the surviving daughter, Vori, years later, told a reporter for Fate magazine that it all happened exactly as had been described. And she had no dog, in that fight any longer.
yeah.
She could have just as easily have said that, yeah, I was just faking it. We wanted to move back to England. But no, she said, no, it actually happened and it ruined my life. So.
Okay.
Well, I saw the movie about that. That was pretty bizarre.
Yeah, and they took a lot of liberties, naturally with that movie, because the real story is even stranger, and could possibly be a situation where it was like a goblin of the hearth, if you're familiar with that term. Um, but,
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So,
And you were talking earlier about trees, spirits of the
yes,
trees.
spirits
Oh,
of the trees,
yes.
right?
I communicate with spirits of trees.
Okay.
And um, and also rocks, flowers, everything is alive. I totally agree. There's a consciousness in everything.
All right. Well, we're Paul has disappeared here, so I'm not sure if he has lost this connection
I'm sorry,
or
Paul.
what. But we've got about 2 minutes and 15 seconds left. So why don't we give Margie a chance to let our audience know where they can find out more about her, websites, books, things like that, Margie. So it's all
Okay.
yours.
Well, best place to go is margiekay.com, MARGIEKAY. I've got everything up there, all my books, and my readings. I do personal readings. I also help law enforcement find missing persons and solve homicide cases. I don't charge for that service. So if somebody's a missing person, you want to call me immediately right after you call the police, please. Send me a text message or an email. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Always got books up. I also own a publishing company, so I publish books for other people. It's called Onyx Media, and all of our books combined are there. I just published a really good one by Dr. Gregory Rogers, and he was a NASA flight surgeon, and he talks about how we got ET technology. It's a fantastic book. He's a whistleblower, and I'm just thrilled to death that we just published that. I also own the UNX Network, and that is a network with 21 different shows on it. My producer is Race Hobbs. He handles most of that. We do some syndicated programs, and we're on all digital radio apps and also YouTube and Rumble.
Wow, that's
Fantastic. Well, Dean, it's your show. You can take us out.
No, I'd just like to say it's been such a joy having you. I wanted to ask you more about all the books you had, but we got such good guests. I appreciate you coming. I hope you can come on again.
Sure, be glad to. Thanks for having me.
Man.
All right. Great talking with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now they can edit this part, though it's probably no editing. That was a fun conversation. I really enjoyed talking with you again.